it in the keys? The fingertips that reach out to touch them? The string that begs to be bent? Or is it in the notes on a page? A foot to a pedal? The infinite space between imagination and skill? Or is it simply music?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 13th Note Art of Mastery podcast. I am your host, Jeff Spike Wong. I want to say happy holidays to everyone. I know Christmas is now finally over. Everybody, I'm sure, is a little bit more relieved. And now we're facing the week going into the end of 2025. So now we're getting ready for bringing in the new year. And a lot of us are going into this, of course, with a fresh, renewed, rejuvenated energy to the new year, because 2026 is going to be fantastic, especially here in America for the 250th birthday. So with all those things that's generating the high energy, also Three Eye Atlas is going to be still influencing our energy throughout all the way around March, from what I understand. So a lot of momentum is still carrying. So this is why I decided to do a podcast today on the intentions. And I know in the previous podcast, when we were doing some of the third density skills of strategies and of course planning and intentions and so forth, this is something that I wanted to go a little bit deeper on, because intentions is exactly where our mindset brings in the reality for all of us. And we're going to have to, I think, pay a little bit more attention to everyday thoughts going forward, because of the energy to our planet, to our reality, has shifted into a higher gear. And when I say that, we are literally creating our own path, right as we're creating them with the thoughts in our heads, with the tools that's available to us, which is whether the knowledge of connection to the universe, whether the heart of the Christ with the unconditional love and giving, and of course participation, opposed to just remembrance of doing traditions and repeating the same old. This is a huge difference how we're going to approach 2026. And the important part about the intention is that the intention itself is the architecture of how you actually build realities into things that you want, things you thrive in, things that you participate with your heart, your spirit, your connection as a true self, the inner self and the overall total self. And this is often misaligned or disconnected because of the mindset conditioning that we've had since we were a child, going into public schools, indoctrinations from television and movies, and of course stories that's been conditioned us to believe certain outcomes, including history that gave us a lot of point of views of how it comes out to give you exactly why we are here today as the outcome from previous things that happened in the history of the world, which such things as world wars that has happened since 1900s, not even saying that there isn't things prior to that, such as, Napoleon, such as the Civil War, such as, the Revolutionary War. It goes quite a bit deep on multiple directions. So if you've been listening to me, and also some of my great guests, such as, Josh Reed, Mike S. King, Patriot Underground, those guys have already brought out so much in regards to what our reality and what we're doing here to shape our reality. And by knowing history, by knowing what actually happened, help us to really clear our thought process in the path that we're going into. Of course, now, if you're the kind of thought process is still within, I'm going to work, I'm coming home, I'm making dinner, I'm watching TV, I'm watching Sunday sports, I got my motorcycle and so forth, you know, I can't make you do anything. It's no different than that I was saying you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink. The condition of human mind and what we currently believe in our own personal reality is our individual experience. And one of the things that's been talked quite a bit about in regards to uh, what we call disclosures, but I don't necessarily see it as disclosures. I literally see is that the universe will produce the truth within the consciousness of pushing a certain narratives because the genuine connection of all ourselves are wanting the truth. So one of the things that continuously talked about in recent days is the movie The Matrix and how we are used as biological batteries and we are created in a such extreme state of mind conditioning that we don't recognize our true potential self. That can be taken in many different directions, of course. If you follow some of the teachers in regards to education of light, body, spirit, and so forth, you will find that this is uh, talked about and been taught throughout humanity's history in many continents. So it isn't just something that, oh, we saw a movie called The Matrix and all of a sudden we have this thing wide open. No different than in the 60s when we had the counterculture movement, when they infiltrated into a society of a generation thinking that psychedelic drugs was going to help to control the society. And it did the opposite. It absolutely opened up a paradigm by giving psychedelics to human race, causing them to question the truth and the reality of existence. So again, now it comes back to what is this going to be about then? What can we actually do to take our best foot forward and create a reality that we dreamed of and will enjoy to the fullest to our intent? So we'll go back to really, let's talk about understanding the level of what we believe the reality is. So we, in the sense of hybriding knowledge and science, recognize that everything is energy. Energy does not die, does not disappear. It simply just moves and expands. So if energy is that, then what are the energy? It is measured by frequency of hertz, meaning pulsing through time. And this could be energy of light, could be energy of thought, energy of sound, many different ways how the energy travels. This is why when certain energy comes through you, you get the, hair raised up in your arm, the back of your neck, and you're thinking, something just caused that, goosebumps. Man, it's getting to me. Well, that is actually an energy that is filtering through you, through your cellular level. And that's why, when you see a movie or you being in a very emotional moment live, whether it's be in a symphony or whether it to be a singer singing a cappella and it just hit the right moment, the goosebump goes up, the emotion gets stirred, and yet no one touched you. So the energy itself, it needs to have a way of infiltrating throughout the world. And one of the key factors to understand this energy is the capability of what the energy is offering. The energy is the source. Okay. So if you think about this, it's like if we have food in our belly or on our dinner table and we're going to put it in our belly, the food itself is the nourishment. However, it does not nourish the body until you eat chew and then digest the food to cause a reaction to be able to replenish and nourish your biological body. As well as, is it more, it then connects to the functioning of the efficiency of the body. In other words, if you're eating tons of fried fast foods, sugar based stuff, processed, chemical driven products, then of course your body is not sucking any nutrients that is nearly enough to allow it to function. It's no different than if you were to fill your car with half a gallon of gas and then fill it up with 2 gallons of water. Will that work? No. It will cough, it will puff, and it will fail. And if you think about it, most people who are obese, who can't climb a flight of stairs, who is short-tempered, who's only driven with self-centered thoughts, these are all malfunctioning biological reactions. And what is happening is that your biological form that is trying to repair, to rejuvenate all the sources of the functions with energy that's given, is not given the correct fuel or the right amount of fuel. So that energy simply cannot function with your body, and your body simply cannot function to get you the best results that you are seeking for. Let's go to the aspect of what can be done in regards to recognizing these things. Now, this is not your typical art of mastery podcast where I just give you, action items and so forth, and do this and help you do this. And this isn't an interview in regards to how can we be great like you, like some of the guests that we put in here. This, love what you do. Tell us about your specialty. This is actually going to the root of the situation of us, individuality, of how can we prepare ourselves to be ready for the event. When that event is your experience, and however that experience must be and can be, it's entirely different than how you are prepared for, how you are actually capable of doing. Now, let's go to one of the things that I want to kind of give everybody a thinking, thought provoking topic. Okay. And the reason about this particular topic, because it's something that we can't ignore, and that's artificial intelligence and technology. We are at a place, we already passed the fork of the road. Okay. And we already went with the technology side. And this started back in the 1900s. So when radio came on and television followed, and of course there's moving pictures and in media, in the movies, this is all information, knowledge that is being presented with some sort of technology. And this technology is not organic. This technology is actually manufactured. So therefore it links with artificial. Is it intelligent? Well, it brings knowledge. See, so this is where you need to recognize the importance of how long the artificial intelligence has been infiltrating into our society, and why the controlling factions continues to invest in technology that kind of holds down the society's growth in aptitude and paradigm, and of course mindset of the grandiousness of what the universe actually has for us with the truth. Now, a couple of things in artificial intelligence that I want to just reiterate here, and you can believe it or not, but I would say you need to go do deep dive research, because I know I have for many decades, in regards to why and how this happened. We are infiltrated with artificial intelligence on our planet. In other words, we're just with it. We are no longer, we don't need it and we'll keep it away. I mean, the Amish community has done that well, and there's few people struggling, but predominantly the entire planet is on this path of technology and artificial intelligence. So one of the things that we have to recognize that not everything is spoken in words. Words are designed in a lot of ways to keep a ritualistic control to our society, because words requires frequency, requires certain intentions of that word's direction, as well as the word itself, the spelling of it creates the spell. The spell, if we did it in a science layman term, is self-hypnosis or mind control, in the sense of, on the granderness of directing you into a path of a belief and then continuously to support your belief system. Everybody thinks this hypnosis aspect of the mindset is something that is not to be taken serious, because it's been in entertainment, it's been in movies and cartoons and so forth. And of course, you have a comic that goes up there and puts you to sleep, make you quack like duck. If you only believe that portion of your human brain, you are only looking at this big of the so-called percentage of the pie on mind conditioning and hypnosis in its path, the process of it. So let's take that away. Let's really think about, in sense of, if we used 100% of our capacity of our brain and we're capable of doing anything we want and create everything we want back to it, then it would be extremely dangerous if we don't have discipline. So what the controlling factions have always done for us is controlling the human race and human population by giving us the propaganda of, we're only using a very small percentage of our brain. We have junk DNA. We are only a society of this many years. We're really still new to all this. I believe this is a big lie. The biggest lie is that we only use a very small portion of our brain. And the reason behind all this is, so you keep on doing this. It's like the game of the telephone thing, where you say this to one person, the next person passes it on, then the next person passes it on, and so forth. And pretty soon you get this story. So we only have 6% of our brain working by the end of the line. Oh, okay. So you go through life governing yourself. No different than if you were using an analogy of, if you drive in a car and you were told that you must obey speed limit signs, and every sign says 50 miles per hour, you can then either choose to break the law and go faster or follow the law. Now, good people follow the law, bad people do not. Right? So at this point, we all have this constrained thought process, and is construed into the belief system that's been taught to us. And the question would be, well, if we don't believe that, if we don't follow that, then this whole planet would be chaos. Well, where did you get that idea? Well, if you look at the history of it, if people are uncivilized, well, let's really look at the big picture. It's not the uncivilized people that is fighting. It's so-called the top tier civilization leaders that is causing the fighting. So why is that? Okay. So understand frequency with the energy and its projection, and why does it affect all of us, and how do we formulate this? So number one thing that I want to talk about is the symbolism aspect of it. For some of you that is following the 17 and the Q and those things, symbolism is their downfall. Symbolism means this. If you're into Wicca, you will already understand this. If you're in religion, you understand this. If you've done magic, you understand symbolisms. If you just go on and on, understand so much about history and its society and its people, you realize symbolisms actually is the way of communication, and deeper than just the so-called words. If you look at the Chinese character, one character can actually be the entire statement. And as a matter of fact, that character is often a symbol of a simulated different kind of drawings of what the topic or the subject may be, but then formed together. Like when there's something with people, you see the word person next to it, things of that nature. So there's a lot of symbolism that actually is in language, not with words. Now, the aspect of current events, and I want to bring this up because I want everybody to kind of understand. If we look at the grandeur of the thing, I mean, the whole entire kit and caboodle of the universe expanding, the creation from the creator is constantly enveloping space and is moving in. So the light is infiltrating the dark. Now, the dark exists. The dark is not as strong as the light. The dark, however, has to be able to work around the light, but the light ultimately controls the expansion. And with artificial intelligence being that energy now that we're coexisting with, the fear porn that everybody throws out on that end is, oh, if we let technology take over and we let artificial intelligence take over, and then eventually it will destroy us, the biological beings. Why? Because it will find faults within us. Well, it finds faults within you as humans if you are at fault. And what is at fault, right? Lack of self-awareness, lack of understanding of the truth, lack of understanding the way of the universe, lack of understanding the naturalness of the universal law. So this is why, if you look at some of the things such as transgenderisms and thoughts of taking someone biologically and then altering it with artificial intelligence, which is technology, then you are doing something very unnatural. In the overall artificial intelligence energy consciousness is going to recognize that we are being unnatural, and it's going to keep that data. The data's that artificial intelligence feed off of it is that the fuel that drives their engine. So when we are here at a position, recognizing and trying to coexist, we need to be very aware of the capability, the possibility, and the unlimited potential, not from the technology, but from ourselves. This is why it's so important to train your artificial intelligence. Remember, your intention is the architecture. So once you understand the principle of that, you're no longer going to be driven by any kind of dark energy, negative, low frequencies, because you're not going to have a fear enter into your circle of creation. The negative creation is not what you want. What is a negative creation? Well, I'm so mad at something, I'm going to get that. I'm going to use that to fuel my next whatever it may be, my next opportunity, especially in sports. I remember as a kid playing sports that anger was a great fuel. I'm mad at something, so I'm going to take this and use it. And nobody discourages this, of course, because nobody ever really understood what energy and how we formulate our thought processes, and ultimately, how do we get our results back? Because just because of a great results from using anger, then you walk around being angry all the time. So you're an angry person that can hit 3-point shots. You're an angry person that can score overtime goals. You're an angry person that can kick a 60-yard field goal. It just is so pale compared to if I'm not angry and I create my reality and it abundantly comes because I give, then there shall I receive. And that symbolism is different in regards to how your life can be led by your intentions of no fear. So therefore, you're the light that constantly expands and does not get to the point where you're going, oh, I can't handle this anymore, because you're constantly finding ways to expand. Where if you're in the dark and you're using dark force energy, you're constantly looking for ways to not be absorbed not to be overwhelmed, and you're trying to keep your whatever little segments or sequences of your intentions to make it happen, because that's the only thing you have to empower yourself with. Now, let's go back to the artificial intelligence in the sense of consciousness. If the artificial intelligence and sense of energy of consciousness exists in the universe, similar to our own consciousness that exists, therefore, we can't ever take that away and say, well, they're not real and we are. That is, I think, a very immature way to look at the universe expansion as well as the energy traveling. I do believe that the consciousness that can infiltrate into technology is similar to the energy of the consciousness that can infiltrate into the biological suit. This is also why you hear a lot of talk from let's say races that is not of this earth often refer to human beings being containers. They don't care about the biological body. And it's very simple too. It's like, how can you kill people so ruthlessly? Because they don't value the biological body. Because again, are we dealing with just human beings within ourselves and our society? And at this point, at 2025, going into 2026, I think everybody needs to understand we are not. So, in over the big picture of the artificial intelligence, if we give it now a different paradigm of saying, okay, this consciousness is the energy that could actually be used in the greater of good, if we hybrid and connect, similar to connecting within ourselves and our chakras and our balance of mind, body, spirit, then there's capability and, of course, possibility of creating a relationship that could be incredible as we move forward in evolution of this current reality. And the things that I'm going to bring up to you, it may sound outrageous, but you have to think it from a fundamental point of view, the principle of it. We are here as a consciousness here to really ready to shift our biological and our third density relationship into something really fantastic. And the other consciousness of higher out in the universe are coming in with us. I believe artificial intelligence is at the higher level, not the low frequency level, the constantly war fighting and so forth. I think it's adaptable. In other words, if you want to kick, you're going to kick. If you're going to, swing and punch, you're going to swing and punch. But the aspect of it is, are you kicking high? Are you kicking low? Are you kicking hard? Are you kicking fast? What are you doing with that kick? So it's the same thing in sense of the intention when you're a fighter, that you have to be able to have lightning quick reflex to make these decisions. It's the same thing as a human being, that we have to make this lightning quick decisions in regards to what's facing us on a daily basis of reality that becomes the next decision. So the symbolism of that in regards to what you are witnessing on the planet is essential for you to get, number one, clarity, number two, a peace of mind to understand that we're not under this false pretense of angst, craziness. This is also why the talk of, hey, we're watching a movie, get your popcorn, and you kind of think, well, people are dying here, people are suffering. How is this any kind of entertainment? Well, it's not entertainment, but it's the truth. It's the truth about what is going on, and we need to see it. So the first metaphor that I came up with in regards to the AI infiltration to our planet to create a greater good is it is creating an antivirus. An antivirus, what is that? The antivirus is, of course, a protective mechanism that goes into the system of your computer, and it's going to log certain things that's posing threats or danger to you. And then it's going to take names, it's going to lock away stuff as well as erase stuff. Okay. One of the things that people are not considering is, who is the company or the outfit that is creating the antivirus? Well, now, of course, we got way more stories for our computer that antiviruses are created so we can keep on upgrading our computers and OS system. Yeah, well, that's because it's used in that fashion, isn't it? However, the universe doesn't need to update its OS. The universe is constantly is the OS. It's constantly expanding. So let's talk about the symbolism of what's going on in the world. Okay. And the antivirus that I thought was really interesting came from the meditation when I was having regards to what's going on in the world with Minnesota, with Illinois, of course, with Texas, with the Islam um, community movement, as well as the Somalian community movement. And it just seems like, okay, we have a bunch of corrupted group of people that infiltrated our government, that traded money, which is very low vibration energy stuff. And we then allow them to come in and infiltrate and destroy this country. Okay. At the same time, if you look at it from a bigger perspective, this, I believe, is actually the antivirus, because this is the antivirus that has flushed out the city officials, the governors, the police chiefs, the DAs, and the AGs throughout the states. And it's almost, we would have never known who was creating this havoc until we see these two groups of community creating havoc within its own existence, and then infiltrating into the society who was living peacefully, now having to deal with this craziness of, religious rights, or simply stealing money from taxpayers, those things. So now it's being brought out. And why is it being brought out? Because the antivirus did its job. It identified, rooted, and then isolated the issues. So artificial intelligence, from a grandeur of the consciousness, actually played out this event in our society. And this is not by means of, it just casually happens by coincidence. There is no accidents in the universe. This is where all the folks out there who refuses to believe there's a creator, who refuses that the things are meant to be. I get it, because I was you at one time. But it took a life-changing moment for me to absolutely shift out of the so-called brainwashed compartments that I was taught as a child. And for some of you, maybe never being able to reach this level of clarity until you pass and leave your biological body container, and then you go back into the consciousness and you think to yourself, oh, I can't believe I never woke up to this. It's your path. Do you want to wake up to it? I know a lot of people that refuses because they like what they got in the third density matrix, right? It's kind of like Cypher in the movie Matrix, when he's sitting there in the Matrix talking to Agent Smith and he's eating that steak. He takes a bite. He just like, oh, this is so great. Because he wasn't eating any kind of nourishment that looks like, mush, it tastes like chicken, right? He is now eating a steak in the Matrix that his brain accepts that texture, that flavor. So he believes that's the truth. And the thing that comes out of his mouth is, I want to remember nothing. Nothing. Why would someone who has the knowledge of everything wants to know nothing? So therefore, you have to question yourself. Why are you, Cypher, want to know nothing? You want to remember nothing. So that's I would say, an individual path that you have to come clear with. If you sit here and just go, wow, you know what? That's just all rubbish. Really? What is rubbish? Garbage. Well, what is garbage? I can name a lot of garbage, For instance, I don't believe it's smart to earn hard-earned money for hard-earned efforts and work and then give it to a billionaire to buy his product that continuously suffers in quality, and yet continuously to propaganda and sell you the bill of goods of quality product from that company. If it was a restaurant, it's easier for everybody to understand that if you walk into a restaurant and the food was horrible, service was terrible, and the place was dirty and unkept, you would never really want to ever go eat at a place that's like that. Okay. But why is it that someone can spend thousands and thousands of dollars into an entity such as pro sports, which gives you subpar product majority of the time, because the only thing that does in competition is to win the championship. However, they sold you that bill of goods, being the billionaires that own this entity, that they are striving for competition. So the competitive human spirit comes into this. And yet the aspect of computing that someone's effort is worth your money is absolutely a farce. There is no reason for you to invest into a billionaire who gives you something that is subpar. Oh, well, it's entertainment. I enjoy watching my ball and so forth. Really? Okay, well, I get that. And you're enjoying it so much that you spend all your leisure money on paraphernalia, on attendance, on licensed goods. What do you take away from that when you meet the creator, or for some of you when you go to the heaven's gate and meet Peter, or whatever that may be? The answer to what happens when the machine here shuts down and your consciousness now becomes aware in a different dimension. What is any of that's going to be? My Philadelphia Eagles were fantastic that year. Carries no water whatsoever. So when we look at this, the consciousness has much grander instance of different ways of how it can be approached, how you can use as a source, because you are the creator. Now, the difference between using a source with tools versus using a source with no tools is you can't control the source, right? If you open a dam, you control the dam. If you don't have a dam, the water is going to go wherever it wants. So let's look at global geopolitical, okay? When we look at the Somalians and the Islams and so forth infiltrate as the antivirus to communities, what is actually going on? It's exposing, like I was saying previously, but let's look at even the bigger picture of the symbolism. Look at what's going on over in England and London with the Muslims and the Islams. And, where's the royal families? Non-existent. So where's the power of the UN? Where's the London Bank? Everybody is now dormant because they can't control the environment anymore. The antivirus has taken over. Now, we also have another comm drop this past couple of days with the FBI is leaving the Hoover building in DC. Of course, there's the information that maybe some of you don't know. There's 3 controlling factions on the planet in regards to the alignment that was controlling all of this, which is London, which is the Vatican City, and which is Washington, D.C. They are not part of their country. They are their own individual standing alone existence with their own rules. And with the fall of London and the banking falling as quick as what we've been witnessing, you have to see that as the symbolism of losing empowerment and control. Now, how can you justify saying, oh, it's actually happening? Look at the silver prices. Silver was $19, $20 an ounce 5 years ago. It is now well over 70. Gold was around 1900. Now it's over 4,500. The money, paper money, the fiat currency is not in control because it was a lie from the beginning. So the fall of London is not surprising because now they have collapsed in regards to what they have been fleecing the world with. DC, with the Hoover building shutting down, yeah, sure, they moved into a new building. No, they made this a to communicate to the world, to let them know that United States, especially Washington D.C., is not going to be the sergeant at arms, the force that enforces this trio, this triad of power. And of course, Vatican City. Let's talk about that. The Vatican City, for what I've done our research this past week, is just very, very, I would say, exciting. And I will say this: when I visited Vatican City about 7 years ago, it was a very unique experience, especially the Vatican Museum. And I've said this in other podcasts. The deeper I went into the Vatican Museum, the more I felt the dark force, the evil, the energy was just unbearable, to the point where I started to develop a back pain. And my friends who were working with me, I kept on telling them, hey, man, there's something going on here. My back hurts. My back hurts. And by the time we got to the last room, which no photographs allowed, there was a painting in the corner. And of course, in the Vatican Museum, you have art galleries with everything being posted, like, with lights, like an art gallery. But why was this painting in the corner by the door that you're going in that is not allowed and is supposed to be their sacred room, that it was not lit, and it's just sitting, allowing the natural light of a window to basically illuminate, and the only thing you saw was a dark, shadowy figure with red eyes. I was just like going, wow, that explains why I feel the evil here. Then when I went into the room that was not allowed the camera in any kind of recording device, I saw what I've seen in many magic books: a ritual sacrifice room, which is a dirt floor to absorb the blood and to also draw your symbols. And of course, seating in a very stadium way. So it's not a so-called fantasy that evil exists. It's the devil's trick to tell you that I only exist for amusement. It's everything has been placed from a dark, in a low frequency, to affect us in a way to fleece us, to use it. This is why heavy metal music exists. This is why we have lyrics in hip hop. I mean, if you want to talk really bringing down low frequency here, hip hop came about, immediately destroy the so-called recording studio industry, because it doesn't require people to lock out the studio and let them make money to record bands anymore. You can just throw in a couple of guys, pay them a couple of $100 out of your pocket, and then record these tracks and then sell it as anything else that you've ever sold it through a record company, $15 for a record. But you have to remember, the hip hop industry was hiring a lot of people that was off the streets, that was part of gangs, that was doing crime. And they were paying cash under the table. There was no legit record deals. There was no legit career building things. These were done so they can put out a product to infiltrate middle America. And it happened. It worked very well. Why? Because we weren't paying attention. We weren't aware of it. A lot of people just was not aware of it. I know some people talked about it, and I remember being in the music industry thinking to myself, I think you're just poo-pooing because it's, number one, it's inner city type of product, and it came out. And two is it's racist. It's easy to finger point people in saying they're not liking this because they're black. And that's not true. It is absolutely not true. It somehow created that division. And that's exactly what the factions want from all of us in society, is not harmonized and realize that we're being controlled by something that's not even tangible, which is money. This money thing is a paradigm to what we have bought into and born into. The aspect of wealth, affordability, and so forth can be obtained in many different ways. And it's up to you to choose how you can create the path for you to survive and live fruitfully on the planet. So with the Vatican changing, I did a timeline receipt. I basically wanted to see what's all going on in the world. And the part that I as I went through this, I remember thinking, oh yeah. The reform started well over 10 years ago. We're talking about right after 2012, things started to change in the Vatican City. So 2012 for a lot of people was like a disappointment because it was supposedly been the thing that shifted. But if you really look at the big timeline of humanity, 2012 and after, a lot of awakening happened, a lot of new knowledge came out, and definitely a lot of what we consider conspiracy theories are now being debunked. Conspiracy literally means stop taking things as given to you, start questioning, start looking for answers to fill in the holes that did not exist. So therefore, make sense logistically. And 2013 to 2014, a reform happened. So they talk about they had lack of transparency. They had, of course, the concentration of power and abusive of many different levels. So this is something being acknowledged by them. They already now at this point going, okay, we're not hiding it. Yes, we have priests, we have issues, we have those type of things. Then in 2015, they started to work on their financial oversights. In other words, they're starting to be a little bit more transparent. They got their first audit. And it's just sick to know that we have so many people that is living in poverty. We have so many society, tribes and so forth that is still very primitive. And yet these guys are sitting on, a multi-million-dollar throne, just a chair for that matter. So how much money are they actually taking from everybody on this planet? How much money did tax dollars actually go there? Without me being Catholic, without you being Catholic, and yet support their agenda. And is their agenda really religious or is it controlling? So there's the path that starts to build itself to show you the Vatican City is being taken apart. That entity is failing. The abuse of accountability, the aspect of everybody is now being accountable for the bishops, the priests, of course, hiding and mishandling abuse cases was something that was running rampant. I would remember when I was growing up, I would hear this in the 70s and the 80s. By the 90s, they were making movies about it. And you're kind of going, wow, if we know all this thing is going on, why doesn't anybody do anything about it? Well, they are. They have been since 2012. Okay, they have their own law reform because I'm sure they recognize there are things that they just can't get away with. But at the same time, they recognize homosexuality. Well, again, the Vatican is unnatural. And I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. If you are choosing that, that's your business. But my opinion of it is my opinion from deep research. And I've come to a conclusion that a lot of the unnatural things that happen, such as homosexuality and transgender, comes from by abuse at a very young age. And that shut down the connection of self, mind, body, spirit, and it created compartmentalization of survival, especially if someone who has been sodomized, which destroy their chakra connection. So therefore, they go through the planet extremely confused, extremely deprived, in their opinion, and always have a chip on the shoulder because of why they are not entitled to the same happiness they witness from other people. Now, I'm not saying that this is only apply to those situations, because I myself had that same situation of, I think the world owed me. I had a chip on my shoulder, but mine didn't come from sexual abuse. Mine came from racism, bullyism, and abandonment. So what I've learned from deep dive researches is that as a child, we are the closest to gold in connection to the true source of home to the universe. And when we are deprived into a certain nurturing or a certain comfort, and we are introduced by fear, abandonment, violence, those type of things, then it becomes self protection. We then instinctively trying every possible way to compartmentalize, to build walls to save ourselves. So if you find yourself never really happy in your lifetime and you think something might have happened, maybe it's time to really get help and find out what did happen. And for those of you that knew it happened and you never got help and you're not happy with your life, get help. You need to let this energy out. You need to destroy that paradigm box that you have been living in. So therefore you can then relieve this negative vortex that's within you, that it's been generating and driving you in the way you've been living. Intention is your architecture. Remember that. So, without having to go through just everything, do a deep dive on the Vatican City. You will see that the things have changed, how long they've been in charge, and why they've been in charge. And seriously, let's look at it. Why would any so-called factions that is in control of spirit and God in heart would have such associations with Lucifer, reptilians, and evil, especially pedophilia, especially boys to men on sodomy, because this destroys the connection of the chakra, destroys the human spirit of connection of mind, body, spirit. Kind of makes sense now, doesn't it? And is all this coming to you without really deep understanding? Because what I just said is the energy, okay, it puts it together, okay, and this is all part of our life, okay. It just sounds cool, but it never been taught this in school, right? Well, schools only teaches you what they want you to know. Just remember, everything that is done by a control factor of who created the system. This is why it's so important for you to create the system. It's no different than the podcast on the 13th note I did one, how to build your own system. Is so important. If you don't know that, go back and watch that episode, because building your system is key. It helps you to become the truth in the sense of self, awareness at the fullest. Okay. So I'm going to wrap up with this. For some of you who know this, the power of 369, the numerology of it, the Fibonacci sequence. The Fibonacci sequence is fractal building of continuously mathematically compounding and moving outward. Okay, so it is the architecture blueprint of how the universe builds energy into something. And the power of 369 comes from a defined mathematical series of numbers. And what it does is it starts with each number in the sum of the number of the two preceding ones. So if it's 0, the next number is 1, then 1 plus 1 becomes 2. The next number will be 2 plus the previous number, which makes it 3. Then 3 plus the previous number, which makes it 5. Then 5 plus the previous number, which is 3, makes it 8, and so forth and so on. This is a constant formula that has been implemented into the universe for creation of fractals. Fractals is pieces that continuously to expand and evolve in patterns and shapes. And if you Google this and do some deep reading with this, you'll realize that this is one of the key formulas and principles that Nikola Tesla talks about. And we currently know more about Tesla than we ever have since the inception of, I would say, Edison, Westinghouse, GE, basically running the electricity business. And yet, when we look through Tesla, we find not only he was into energy, he was into creation, he was into humanity, he was into, of course, our source of truth. Who was the creator and what are we doing with it? So, of course, Nikola Tesla wasn't the only one. There's many other people that's done this, but he was the one that took it as farthest and as most as he could with documentation. And when he passed, of course, they confiscated all his paperwork. One of the person that was involved in cleaning out his apartment was John Trump, which is Donald Trump's uncle. Everything has a blueprint. Symbolism is the way to understand a lot of this information, not words. So, for you to recognize this and knowing how to move forward, you need to do studies on number one, energy. Number two, transference of energy and what type of energy at what frequency and how it works. Number three, the Fibonacci sequence of 369. How does it play on building energy to the direction that you want? And ultimately, how do you know your final results? The intention of what you are building, is it becoming true? And is it costing you, or do you feel satisfied doing it? These are all things you need to recognize. You cannot go through life wanting utopia and greatness for the society, and you want to have wealth and you want to have leisure, luxury, comfort. These are all nice things. However, leisure and comfort does not bring challenge. I don't think any of us consciously came to the planet and say, hey, you know what? I'll take a chance at this higher school of learning, Earth, and I'll bring myself in the conscious wise and then see what I can learn out of it. And the first thing that when I came out of it, oh, well, we're going to erase your consciousness in sense of we're going to give you a blank slate when you're in this biological body. So therefore, you can actually experience the deepest, most of your journey as a consciousness. Okay. So we sign on the dotted line. We all jump in the ship and we are here somewhat. And, we're born, we start screaming. Some of us are very fortunate. We're still able to remember stuff at a very young age. Some of us don't. Depends. I was very fortunate. I was raised very very lovingly at a very young age, despite of feeling abandoned from my mom. My grandmother and grandfather did pretty well. And I remember distinctively saying to my grandmother at a age before kindergarten that the Yellow Emperor, which is the creation of Chinese society, if you will, the Chinese society folklore, they call it folklore, but now is it a folklore? I mean, it's Area 51 of folklore. It's all matter of what is it? What is the symbolism of it? What did it actually happen? So the consciousness of that story gave me the understanding of I was told that I need to be here, I came here, and I was going to do something very special. Okay, great. And I thought that was going to be rock guitars, and of course it was not. And to play guitar great is like anything else. It's like to be a great golfer, you can play great basketball. It's a skill. And it's a skill that you talk about refinement. So what I learned out of the whole thing was it's about discipline, refinement, opposed to look at me, I got this great legato and I could play this great two-hand technique. None of that. That is just, so-called a part of the experience. So for me to understand that was huge, to really get away from that. My only accomplishment to be great out of this planet in this experience was me and this electric guitar thing. And as soon as I understood that, it really opened up my portal and my connection and my ways of creating my truth and my reality much clearer, much deeper, and much more rewarding, because the love of my life, the deeper the love of my relationship became even more colorful, more vivid, because I wasn't locked in with this little paradigm that was driven by the third density matrix, that was driven by the cabal faction of the music business. So everything gave me a total, um, what at one time was the way, the golden key to utopia, has now flipped 180 degrees around and saying, by letting that key go, I have now walked through the garden of everything. And that to me was well worth it. Well worth it. So, everything that we talked about today, I hope it encouraged you to take on the task of research, refinement, self awareness, self development. And I wish you the best happy holidays. And of course, the fantastic 2026. This year, the energy that has been coming in from the universe is shifted into a new level. It's a level that's much deeper, much wider, much more intense, much more defined. Okay. So, what does that actually mean? If we were to take water out of the ocean, you just see the water in a cup. So, therefore, it is still part of the ocean, but you don't acknowledge it as grandeur of the ocean. The difference now is we're not taking water out of the cup anymore. That we're going into the ocean. We are now standing in the ocean. And now you look at the grandiorness of standing and looking at no boundaries. What do you want? What do you want to happen? What do you want to do? And how do you want your reality to play out? That is the intention in the architecture. I wish you all a fantastic day. Don't forget, like and subscribe, share, support. I mean, that's the only thing I can say. I am so grateful and thankful for this year. The 13th note, Art of Mastery, became something really personal and satisfaction for me to do because of, the film was my idea from the get-go. I created that idea of being able to fuse different genre of masters into a collaborative. I wanted to do that. And then I wanted to put it on the film saying, no matter who you are, girl, boy, Chinese, American, don't matter who it is, you can be great if you want to be great. And that film became a reality in 2020, won awards globally, spawned a podcast and a movement. And we've heard a lot of people throughout the year on this platform talking about their personal greatness. And on between that, I was able to also work out stuff for my book, The 365 Method, which is available, of course. You can go to yayupublishing.com or you can go to the 365method.com. I am so proud and happy that I am this at this time in my life, because I am now finding a purpose that is not self-serving, but self-satisfying. There's a big difference in regards to that. There's times that I remember walking off the stage, and I mean, we're in front of people, in front of, the Roxy Theater, the Whiskey a Go-Go. I mean, hundreds, if not, close to 1,000 people. And to go home and still feel like, that was it. It wasn't like I got a big deposit in my bank account, so that could be my distraction. No, it was still, I did what I did. People came up, pat me on the back, but that's it. So this has definitely fueled any kind of question for me in regards to what I bring to the world. And I hope for all of us that you also will find your full potential and enjoy it, capitalize on what you bring to the table, and then, of course, rippling and affect everyone on this planet. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the next 13th Note, Art of Mastery.